everybody, it's Allie. Happy Mother's Day and welcome to our Y&R Chat for Sunday, May 13th, 2018. I can't really even remember a Y&R episode in recent years where they've done such a wonderful job of incorporating the Mother's Day holiday into the show. Every single scene that we saw on Friday had characters reflecting on their mothers, reflecting on being a mother. I think Y&R did a really nice job of showing us that. Of course, none of the characters had quite the amount of reflection and explosion that Jack had around his mother this week. Oh, this paternity secret was a ticking time bomb waiting to happen, and Kyle was the one who started the whole thing. Kyle was the one who handed the ticking time bomb right over to Victor, and I was expecting him to tell Kyle that he didn't appreciate Dina being used in this feud that he has with his father. Victor was very specific with Kyle in telling him not to use Dina's Alzheimer's in any way, shape, or form when it comes to this war. But Victor did end up rejecting the evidence as hearsay. I mean, Kyle handed him the video of Dina, the Blood Abbott clause inside of the Jabot bylaws, and Victor said there's really nothing to back any of this up. I mean, thanks and all, but there's no evidence, which means I can't use it, which means you've really given me nothing, but I'm gonna just hold on to it, okay? I'm just gonna keep this as a sign of your good faith, and you can just scoot along. Just, you know, I'll hold on to it for safekeeping. Kyle puts his tail between his legs, leaves Victor's house, goes back to the Abbott mansion where Jack and Abby are planning a red carpet affair for Dina's big movie premiere. It was an Act 1 gun if I've ever seen one. The second I saw how jubilant, over-the-top joyous Jack and Abby were about this big evening, I knew, it's not gonna be good, but it was still good. It was perfect timing with the Emmys, too. We just had those last week, and now here we are in a very similar tone on the show. Jack rented out a movie theater. He is throwing a huge bash for her movie to allow herself to be seen, to see herself on screen. I mean, he even went as far as to actually rent a red carpet. He is throwing this huge dinner in advance of the premiere, spare no expense in Dina's honor. I want her to feel like a movie star, and she may not be aware of every detail of this and why she's there, but she will still feel special, and that was the intent of the evening. We're gonna create a family memory that will last forever. A night to remember. Indeed. Everyone was dressed to the nines. Yes, I did notice that Ashley was wearing the same dress that Eileen Davidson wore to the daytime Emmys. It was so beautiful. That beaded silver dress that I was going on about last week, that's what she wore to the Emmys. She looked stunning, and can we just take a moment to appreciate it? When she turned around, that dress was cut really low on her back. I mean, it was like maybe an inch above butt crack. It takes a really nice body to be able to pull off a dress like that. I mean, she was just giving low back perfection, and I wanted to just go on record as appreciating it. Like, she even kind of had some side boob coming out of that dress. When I was looking at her in the theater scenes, I was like, this dress is it's classy, yet it is very sexy, and she pulled it off flawlessly. I also really loved the way that Abbey was styled. I don't know if Melissa Ordway went to the Emmys. I didn't recognize, or I didn't remember seeing her from any of the photos, but she was wearing a very splashy dress with a black lace corset, and then it had this bright fuchsia skirt and a big black bow right in the center of it, or maybe it was off center, but she just looked expensive. I, in fact, really loved everything that Abbey was wearing all week. One after another, I kept looking at her dresses and started thinking, she looks so good. Her hair was really soft and crinkly in a couple of the scenes, and she had on, I think it was for Mother's Day, a white dress with some florals, and then she had it on at another point in the week. I think it was navy and red. Very summery feeling dress. I just thought she was looking really, really good this week. The men were dressed to the nines as well. Jack looked dashing. He even gave a pair of John's cufflinks to Kyle to spruce him up for the big evening, to not only make him feel a part of the evening, but make him feel like a part of the family. I thought to myself immediately, oh no, what horrible thing is Kyle going to do while wearing his grandfather's cufflinks? Oh. It's too bad that Kyle has decided to make himself feel so obviously isolated from the family, because in so many ways he does a really good job of dealing with Dina and of trying to make special moments. When they set out the red carpet photo shoot so that Dina could feel like she was having a red carpet press moment, Kyle was right there snapping photos with the rest of the family, very happy, just lavishing attention upon Dina, and it was very special. I could tell that she really felt like the star of the show, and that was the intent. It almost didn't happen though. How about the moment where Dina comes downstairs in her robe, and it's clear that she has plunged into a deep, deep regression. She suddenly thinks that she's a child, and she's very, very afraid, and she was saying, I want my mommy, I want my daddy. That made me hurt on the inside. It was very, very bad. I wonder if Mal went through an experience like that with his own mother. As we all know, he's writing the show. He's writing this Alzheimer's storyline, and that's a facet of the disease that we really haven't seen represented, and I really didn't know that that was part of it, that there would be a regression, but it almost makes it complete, because in so many ways it does feel like Alzheimer's is it's pulling you back almost all the way to being a child, and in a lot of ways they do end up having to handle Dina like a child, and then here she is saying, I want my mommy and I want my daddy. It was very, very heartbreaking, yet in the next moment she is snapping right back to being her old self and her old bossy self, and she's insisting on being taken to her movie premiere, and she's not going to let any of these Abbotts stand in the way of her spotlight. It has to be so hard for the family to manage that, because here they're trying to present something special for her, and she treats them a little bit like they're getting in the way of something special for her. So it's difficult to continue to watch this regression of Dina's, but I really was wishing it was going to be a happy moment for her and for Jack, but in the back of my mind, knowing that it was all going to fall apart, off they go to the movie theater. It seems like everyone is settling down for the show, ready to look at the big screen. And who should slip in from the shadows right before they roll the film? Victor Newman. He shows up uninvited to this family event. How dare he? The gall of this man. I understand that Victor and Jack have an ongoing feud for the ages, but how do you hate someone so much that you go out of your way to interrupt what should be a precious family moment, to have a front row seat to watch Jack's humiliation? How can you then go home at night and feel good laying down on your pillow? I really thought that Victor was having a moment of sympathy for his enemy when he was at the ranch talking to Neil in earlier scenes. And he knows this secret about Jack's paternity that nobody else in the world knows. He knows it before Jack knows it. And he's talking to Neil. And Victor has a line where he says to Neil something to the effect of that, say what you will about Jack. He always looked up to his father. It's just that the tragedy of his life is that he was never able to live up to his father. And I thought that is a really apt observation by Victor, and it clued me in to thinking that maybe he was going to choose to have mercy on Jack with this information, and that's not at all the way it went. I was so disappointed in Victor for about the millionth time ever. Jack, everybody is ready to enjoy this happy moment with Dina, possibly one of her last happy moments for all we know. And there Victor is now, standing in the shadows, insisting to Dina that he should have an invitation to this movie. And she doesn't know any better. He was just telling Kyle to not use Dina's Alzheimer's. And there he is, standing there, manipulating her into allowing him to stay to watch Jack's ruin. And Jack doesn't know that. Nobody else knows what's coming. Jack's ready to have Victor thrown out into the street. Yet, Dina, in her diseased mind, thinks that Victor is this man that she went to the winter formal ball with, and she wants him to stay to enjoy her moment of glory. So he does. Victor settles down into his seat, cups his hands, and waits for the show, waits for the ruin. We dim the lights, and there's this beautiful opening sequence. It's clear that this is not just something that Charlie and Abbey put together as a bunch of rough cuts of Dina's interviews. This was stylized. It had music. It had meaning. It was going to be gorgeous. We saw some gorgeous shots of the Abbotts and the Winters, who were also there. Shots from the audience perspective, and also seeing the screen, and then also shots of the audience from the screen's perspective. And you could even see the little lights gleaming through from the projector. It was just visually a very stunning, meta moment of cinema within cinema. And we begin to watch the film that has all of the interviews that we have seen with Dina over the course of the past couple of months. We have heard her say a lot of the same things that she has said, and tell a lot of the stories that we've heard her tell before. And then there's just a very hard cut, and all of a sudden we cut to the infamous interview of Dina in tears, confessing her deepest, darkest secret that she had affairs. She had affairs on John, and that Jack is a product of one of those affairs. I mean, tonally, it could not have been more different and more obvious. Here we are in the middle of a beautiful moment, and then all of a sudden we are plunged into the deepest, darkest recesses of Dina's mind. A private moment that never should have been public, never should have been broadcast on the screen. Everyone is sitting there in their seats with their mouths agape. They can't believe what's happening. This can't be right. Abby and Ashley are just looking at each other like, what's going on here? How is this possible? We thought we destroyed this footage. We've seen a preview of the movie. Abby and Jack and Kyle sat down and watched a preview of the movie. This shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be a surprise. I can't believe that Ashley and Abby didn't stand right up in that moment and scream or make a commotion or run over and cover Jack's ears, because Jack is watching this. And the look of confusion and slowly disgust starts to wash over his face, and he could not believe what he was looking at before him. He should have been protected from this information. That's what Dina wanted. That's what Ashley wanted. That's what Abby wanted. And instead, he was just soaking it in, hearing everything. And the most disgusting part was that Victor was sitting behind Jack, right next to Kyle, looking all smug and self-satisfied. Happy. Victor didn't look surprised. Victor didn't look surprised. And I can only assume that Victor was the one who did it, right? It seemed early in the week that Kyle was going to be the one to pull the fast one, and now I'm thinking it had to be Victor. I don't know how Victor pulled it off, but he's Victor. Surely he's the one who pulled it off. Who else would want to hurt Jack on such a fundamental level? We know part of the dynamic in Victor and Jack's relationship has always been Victor having this sense of resentment, I think, toward Jack for the fact that Jack was born with a silver spoon. We've heard that line many times. Jack was handed everything that Victor had to work so hard for, to build from the ground up. So maybe there was just a sick satisfaction in trying to take that away from Jack, to take away from him the one thing that meant the most to him, the one thing that he based his entire life, his entire being on. And Jack, upon hearing these words come out of Dina's mouth, Dina, by the way, is just happily lying next to him. Jack stands up and says, "Wait, no, replay that." He makes them replay that interview so that he can really hear it. I just felt pity for him, because it's not just about his paternity. He's watching Dina say this about his paternity, but what's really happening is it's really causing a question, or calling into question, his entire identity. Because Jack is Jack, but he's also John Abbott Jr. And he spent his whole life trying to become a worthy, in quotes in his mind, a worthy John Abbott Jr. And it's not quite the same. I mean, John loved all his children, but it's not quite the same dynamic as it was with Ashley and Tracy. Jack is the firstborn son. Jack was groomed to follow in the footsteps of his father, and yet his entire life fell short. And so now, hearing this information about not being John Abbott Jr. must have rocked him to his core, so much so that, of course, later he goes on to want to deny it. It also is an interesting full circle moment that Jack has given the speech to Ashley many, many times about how blood doesn't really matter. That, he said to Ashley, you were John's daughter in every way that counts, even if not biology. And now here he is hearing probably those words ringing in his ears as well. And yet he knows better than anyone that biology does matter when it comes to this particular family and when it comes to Jabel. Later, Ashley and Abbey do confirm the information with Jack. They tell him, yes, this interview happened. We didn't want to tell you about it. We didn't want to hurt you. We also had a DNA test ran on the side. We grabbed your hair sample. We grabbed a sample from Tracy. We had them compared. The DNA came back to show a non-match, and I kind of wish, in a way, that Abbey and Ashley hadn't done that. I kind of wish that they would have just kept up the lie. The little bit of information got out, and instead of maybe trying to smooth it over, they really just let all of the information get out. I kind of would have preferred if they didn't talk about the test, or maybe just said, okay, well, let's just forget it, move on. It probably is just, oops, don't know how that got in there. They didn't try to downplay it at all. They instantly just said, well, guess it's out now, so we might as well tell him everything. And Jack, I think, has probably gone through all of the stages of grief this week when it comes to receiving this information. He does snap. He does lash out. It is quite clear that even though he wants to hear the information, he doesn't want to soak in the information, and he certainly doesn't want it to be true. He lashed out at Dina, which was understandable, but also really hard to see, because here Dina is in a very vulnerable state, and I think it would be difficult to be judged by your family and not really even know it. I mean, Dina made the mistake of, after all this has gone down, bumbling downstairs and starting to blather on about her loyal and honest relationship with John that we all know is not true. And it does seem that Dina fluctuates between saying that she and John had this amazing romance and then going, well, this other guy was the love of my life. So it is kind of hard to take her word for any of this, but at the same time, just knowing that she is diseased and that she is in this vulnerable state, it's really hard to blame her. Yet I think it's understandable that Jack had a moment of wanting to blame her. How much can one man really take? He has spent months and months and months of listening to her call him John and treat him like John, to have your mother treat you like you're her husband, and then now to hear her claiming that Jack's not even John's son? I don't blame Jack for lashing out. I don't blame Jack for being in denial about it either. The next morning, it was kind of like it never happened. Jack didn't want to hear it. He just wanted to go into the office like usual and pretend like none of it was happening. I was with him on his journey. I think that the DNA test and all of this seemed so very flimsy. We've been saying that since the beginning. So I can completely understand why Jack would think this is just a combination of Dina's disease and a really not stable piece of evidence. I mean, Abbey and Ashley ran this DNA test on the sly, and they also aren't exactly neutral. I mean, I appreciate that Abbey and Ashley were taking the high road, and both of them did a really good job of managing Jack's lash, because not only did he lash at Dina, but he lashed at them, and he said a lot of hurtful things. But I do like and appreciate how Ashley and Abbey tried to just take into account the pain that he must be feeling. I mean, Ashley's been there. Ashley's felt all of these feelings and all of this pain. But I also understood where Jack was coming from. He has had a pattern of women in his life doing these paternity switcheroos. I mean, Ashley did that with Abby's paternity. Dina has said that she's done it with Jack's paternity, and Diane did it with Kyle's paternity. Look, the paternity rates in this town, it's like 50-50 on who the father is ever gonna be. So I felt that Jack's actions were all logical, up to and including the fact that his instinct was to just go to the bar and start drowning his sorrows. All of that made sense to me. But I did like this new wise sage Gandhi-esque Neil coming in to the picture and reminding Jack that drowning his sorrows is not really going to get him anywhere. It seemed like Jack was ready to just bury all of this, drown all of this, and it was Neil who pushed Jack into taking some action. If you feel, Jack, that you are John Abbott's son, which is what Jack was saying, I feel it in my bones. I know who I am. I know I'm John Abbott's son. I mean, people have remarked on our resemblance over the years. I don't need anybody else trying to tell me who I am. Then prove it. Neil says prove it. Go get your own DNA test, and I cannot wait to see these DNA test results, chatters. I don't know anything. I have no spoilers, but it just looks like from the next week on Y&R previews that we're gonna be getting them. He's getting the test, he's getting the results, so we gotta place our bets now on Sunday, I guess, before it all starts to roll out. I can only imagine that the results are going to be confirmed, that Jack is going to learn that he's not a match with Billy. He used Billy this time as the control sample, and I'm going to guess that those tests are going to show that he's not John Abbott's son. Only because I think that that's got to be the drama that's going to carry us through the summer. I think we, as the audience, are going to see Jack having shot himself in the foot with that blood Abbott clause, possibly getting himself kicked out of his company. Oh, I hope. I mean, it'll be juicy. It's going to be tough to watch since Jack does a particularly good job of pulling on my heartstrings, but I just have a feeling that he shot himself in the foot and he's gonna get kicked out of the company. I just hope that there's like another twist that's gonna come along in the fall or something that's gonna undo it all, because I need Jack to be John's son at the end of the day. And honestly, I would like it very much if like if we could get back to remembering Dina as being a little less loose. It's hard to think about her, just, you know, this life that she's led, and on top of everything else that she lied about Jack's paternity for all these years. I wanted that to be not true. And as I mean, as Tracy said, this could be Dina's very last Mother's Day. How about that moment of clarity that Dina had with Tracy? We've had all of these weeks of Tracy, trying to connect with Dina, and Dina having no idea who she is. And for one brief crystallized moment, Dina looked at Tracy, knew that that was her daughter, and they bonded on Mother's Day of all days. It was so very special, and I would like to have more of those types of special moments with Dina without all of the paternity resentment hanging in the air, on top of the resentment over the fact that she abandoned her children. Word has spread through the grapevine about the screening last night, and now everyone at Jabot knows about it. What a gossipy company. What was it? The guy who ran the projector at the theater is cousins with somebody who works in the receiving department, and then that person told one person, and then that person told another, and all of a sudden, it's the buzz of Jabot. Everybody knows that the CEO is maybe not even the son of the founder. Gasp. Ravi, of course, ends up hearing this secret, and he connects the dots about the video he recovered for Kyle, and he approaches Ashley immediately, tells her he's really sorry, but he believes he inadvertently played a part in this by recovering that file from a burned memory card for Kyle. So Ashley tells Abbey all about it. They kick around the idea that Kyle was the one, not only if he had the footage, then he was certainly the one who edited into the movie. And Abbey confronts Kyle about it. Now that I think about it, I do remember Abbey and Kyle having a pretty close relationship, so it was good to see Abbey just try to actually talk to the guy, and he does admit taking the card out of the fire, but he denies editing it into the video, and that really only leaves one other person. Victor made himself so obvious by going to the movie premiere. He had to know that someone was going to wonder how that happened, and that he was going to be a prime target. I mean, Abbey doesn't really even need a confession from anybody. It probably doesn't take two brain cells to rub together to figure out that Victor was the one behind it, unless there's another twist. I mean, on some level, I was starting to get a vibe that maybe Kyle was even disgusted with Victor about it. I mean, in that scene, when we saw Dina come up on the big screen, Victor was looking pretty happy with himself, and Kyle was looking pretty stunned. So I think maybe Kyle is angry at the fact that Victor double-crossed him. Victor, which was no big surprise to any of us, but Victor took that information that Kyle provided on good faith and used it without the tit for tat coming back around to Kyle. There was also this moment, I could be completely off, but there was a moment I thought when Jack gave Kyle the cufflinks, where I thought maybe Kyle is starting to regret his actions, where maybe he is starting to come around to actually wanting to have a relationship with his father. But I don't know. I have a feeling most of the Y&R chatters are pegging Kyle as like pure evil at this point. I asked you guys in a poll question last week if you are loving Kyle, hating him, or just loving to hate him, and the majority vote went to just straight up hate. 46% of Y&R chatters just straight up hate Kyle. It was pretty close though. 43% of you said that you are loving to hate him. That was my vote, and 11% just loving him. So we have a fairly mixed opinion here, but most of us at least are shifting toward thinking he's a little bit of a snake. I thought that we did start to see some glimmers of humanity out of him this week, especially when we got to let Kyle have a Mother's Day moment acknowledging Diane and confronting Nikki. How great was that? And how perfect was that? Here we were last week, I think, giving Y&R a big tisk, tisk, tisk for not folding in that information to the story. It's so relevant to what's going on right now with Nikki. And here we are 1 week later. I just imagine that Y&R was listening to us last week and saying, oh, just wait. You just wait. We're on it. We got it. It's a good tie-in and we already knew. Because Kyle goes to Victor's house the next day after the screening, which is another reason that kind of makes me think Kyle was going to Victor to say, hey, what the heck? Why did you do this? It felt like a confrontation to me. But instead of running into Victor, Kyle runs in to Nikki, and he was very harsh with her. I mean, we saw elements of a kid that just misses his mom. And later we saw a little bit more of that too when Kyle goes back to the house and gets involved in the argument that Jack and Abbey and Ashley are having. I got a sense of this is just a kid that at the end of the day lost his mother, lost a very important person to him, and that person was taken away by the woman standing in front of him today, Nikki. I mean, Nikki was the one that killed Diane, and she got away with it. And Kyle was very quick to remind her that she basically got away with murder. Little does he know that she's done it again. As far as we know, Nikki's got away with murder again. Although, next week, it looks like Phyllis's paranoia is probably going to hit a fevered pitch, because we saw the preview where Phyllis is over at Nick and Sharon's house, and Nick is getting word that JT's cell phone is on the move. So his cell phone has been turned on and it's now being pinged around town. Well, my first instinct was, okay, wait a minute. So does that mean that JT's alive? Is there any chance he's alive? But didn't Phyllis say that she dumped off JT's cell phone at like the Genoa City dump? I thought that she trashed it or something. Certainly it is in a garbage pile somewhere, right? And certainly JT would not have dug himself up from the ground and then happened to wander down to the GC dump to magically retrieve his old cell phone, right? I can only imagine or theorize that maybe the cops discovered JT's cell phone. Maybe the cops turned it on, and maybe, just maybe, they are trying to turn it on in order to like flush some information out of these women who Paul knows are clearly keeping a secret. Maybe by turning on that cell phone, Paul thinks that that's a piece of cheese that maybe the mice will come wanting to eat on, or maybe make them paranoid or whatever, and flush some truth out to light. Or maybe I'm just giving way too much credit to the GCPD there. Sex, then a movie, then a pizza, then sex again. Are we in heaven? I think we're in heaven, or I am anyway. So, best part of the week for me personally. Nick's questioning of Sharon, it leads to a big fight between them, and that big fight leads to a big release. Ah, that was a long time coming, wasn't it? I mean, how long has it been since Nick and Sharon were together? I mean, the last time they had sex was maybe when they were engaged, I'm gonna guess, and that's probably been 5 years. So that's a lot of sexual tension that has been built up. And I really liked that Y&R took the time to show the maybe seemingly mundane details of it. Like, I liked that Y&R showed us the moments of the undressing right before. Like, of course you get your big passionate kiss, but then we go up to the bedroom and we actually do see them getting undressed and pulling off the pants. And I mean, just it's the little details like that, I think, that made it feel very real. I felt their anticipation. I even felt the moments where they were looking at each other, questioning whether or not they should be doing this, but then deciding to proceed. I really, really had fun with Nick and Sharon this week. I mean, it was over really way too quick, the first one anyway, but they did the deed, and then they were just hanging out downstairs having pizza and watching a movie, and they had the old pizza sauce on the face trick. Sharon's got some pizza sauce on her face, and Nick has to just help her get that off, maybe with a smoochy smooch. It was really cute between them, and I liked that we had the black and white film that they were watching. That's become Mal Young's signature. He's done that a couple of different times where we see our characters watching a movie, and of course in that movie their on-screen passion leads to Nick and Sharon's on-screen passion. And they have to run upstairs and do it again. Fine with me. You go ahead and get that tension out, Nick and Sharon. I'm just really glad that the aftermath of it all wasn't uncomfortable. I'm glad that they were able to still stay in the same house and kind of hang out afterwards, and they both were very mature about it. Just as soon as it was over the second time, they started talking about what this means. You know, okay, so we didn't just do it once, now we're doing it. How's that gonna work? And Nick says, to be honest with you, I'm not really ready for a relationship. Sharon lies and says neither is she. So they just agree to go on being friends with benefits, although I cannot imagine that's gonna last very long. It's gonna go one way or the other. They're gonna end up leaping into a full-fledged relationship, or something's gonna happen and it's gonna bust them up for who knows how long. But I thought maybe a fun poll question for this week would be to ask you guys how you like your Nick and Sharon. Like, what's your ideal Nick and Sharon? Would you like to see them being just friends, platonic? Are you kind of liking that whole like just hanging out vibe? Do you like the friends with benefits? Do you like them maybe just having that connection but also getting the steamy lovemaking scenes? Would you prefer to see them as a complete couple, or you just think they need to be done with each other? YRChat.com, that's our poll question for this week. How do you like your Nick and Sharon? We've got varying degrees of Nick and Sharon, all the way from just friends to like be done with each other. And you can tell me how you like to see these two together, or what you'd like to see for the future of their relationship. The mind-blowing sex aside, we do still have the unpleasant matter of their disagreement. They had that big old argument, and then it was diffused with sex, but Nick never agreed to stop pursuing the truth about JT, and I'm sure that includes questioning her about what she knows. Sharon merely sidetracked Nick's efforts for a few hours and a few days. I wonder what's going to happen to their cozy little friends with benefits arrangement once the truth, or more of the truth about that, comes out. I think we can all agree that the real victim of Dina's failed movie premiere night is Charlie. I felt so bad for that guy. He worked so hard to put together this movie, not because he was getting paid for it, but because he felt passionate about the project, and that in doing so, it made him discover something about himself, something that he might want to do as a career. So I felt really terrible for him, looking at his face, knowing that everybody's probably looking to him for why that footage was edited into the video, to think that he did it on accident or that he did anything that would allow his masterpiece to be fumbled with, I think really broke his heart. But Lily and Kane were so steadfast in their support of him. I loved the way that Lily and Kane were proud of him and really didn't even focus on the one minor flaw of the evening. They tried to, even though the evening went haywire, they did not change the tone. This was a celebration for Charlie. They went to the coffee house afterward, and they were trying to create a fun and supportive environment for their son. Kane even had the little mini award ready for Charlie, and Charlie gave his cute award acceptance speech. That kid's got a lot of personality. I would really, really like to see him continue on the show. I hope that they don't decide to send him away to film school or something like that. I think he's a really, really good get. We gotta keep him Y&R, and it was nice to see a family coming together in contrast to what was going on with the Abbotts as that family was coming apart. I also loved that Kane, after all of this went down, on the sly, like kind of secretly without Lily and anybody else knowing, he went over to that Abbott house to make sure that they were not trying to scapegoat his son. He flat out got in their face and said, just so you know, this is your movie. It was your footage. You signed off of it. Is that clear? You are not going to try to drag my son or his name through the mud. This is your problem, not mine. I loved it. Kane is being a great dad. He is back on track. It wasn't that long ago that Kane was messing up and we were all mad at him. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge the fact that he's being really good. He's being great with Sam, and Lily is coming around to love Sam as much as if he were her biological son. We had a really sweet Mother's Day moment at the end of Friday's show where Lily was snuggling up to Sam. She didn't know if she'd ever be able to get there, and here she was. She was even having a conversation about her own mother. You know, I mean, here Lily is being a mother, thinking about the mother that she has lost, and let's also not forget that that Drusilla was not only Lily's mother, but she is also an instance of someone who took on a foster son and loved him as her own. It's, you know, DNA is one thing, but most certainly Drusilla loved Devon as if she gave birth to him. And now we come to our final mother-to-be for this Mother's Day 2018. Wow. I did not expect what happened with Hillary and Devon to happen. Hillary could have scooted Devon out of that doctor's office about 10 minutes earlier, and she could have kept up the secret insemination plan, but instead they're both standing there in the doctor's waiting room. She starts to tell him the truth about what she's getting ready to do to deceive him when the doctor comes out and busts her out, tells the secret for her. I mean, I expected Devon to flip out, to turn around, to storm out of the doctor's office and claim he was done with Hillary for about a week. I mean, that was a weak level of, he should have been mad at her for at least a solid week over that little trickaroo. But that's not even what he did. He actually stayed and he listened to her explanation, which is hard. It's a hard. He really wants to believe Hillary. He is working overtime to make excuses for Hillary, because that would have been a really hard one for me to forgive. That big of a lie would have been really hard to forgive. But he does always give her the benefit of the doubt. He listens to her explanation about her feelings when she discovered that she had a non-pregnancy, that she was experiencing feelings of loss, and Devon was realizing that he was experiencing that feeling of loss too. That's something that they were going through together at that very moment, and he says, let's just go forward with this insemination. Color me stunned. Did not expect it. I mean, the doctor also didn't expect it. You would have thought that that would have ended in an epic fight, and instead Devon says, let's just go through with your secret plan and just make it not secret. We're gonna get you pregnant and we're gonna have this baby together, even though Devon's family's gonna hate it. It means destroying his relationship with Simone. Here's the thing, Devon could have a baby with any woman, anytime. He chooses Hillary every time. I mean, honestly, if Hillary would choose the truth a little more often, she could have Devon back entirely and completely. She could have the family and she could have the man. I just think that this is, it's a lot for, I think, Devon to bear. I'm glad that Devon decided to listen to Neil's sage fatherly advice, but there is a part of me that has a hard time denying that Devon just wants Hillary. He wants someone to give him an excuse to be with Hillary. There's no reason, even if he just wanted the baby, that he couldn't cooperate and co-parent with Hillary and still have his own separate life, yet he decides to break things off with Simone, and he tells Hillary that he's breaking things off with Simone. But the caveat is, he says, you know what, I broke things off with Simone, but that doesn't mean that you and I are getting back together. And Hillary just looks at him the same way we as the audience are looking at him. And she just says, whatever you say, Devon. Do you need flashcards? That was our quote from last week. It was Phyllis who said that line to Sharon. I honestly think maybe I need flashcards to try to keep their lie straight about everything that's gone down with JT. Quite a few of you guys guessed that that was Phyllis's line, so congratulations, Anna, T. Nicole, Consuela, Henry, Nancy, Gina, Ambreen, Sandra, Ellen, Tommy, and Juanita. You guys all got it right. I'm gonna give you a harder one this week. I've had a couple weeks, I think, where I've made them easy, and now I think this one's a hard one, but I like the line. I love crushing people's dreams. Who said it? I love crushing people's dreams. If you think you know, you can go to yrchat.com to leave your guess. And if you get it right, then I will give you your shout out next week. Connor says, has anyone noticed Kyle seems more invested in Victor more and more these days? He wants to be a Newman so badly. It's kind of disgusting and pathetic to watch, truthfully. Willing to sell out your own father for what? A quick stint at Newman Enterprises? Kyle, please get a grip on reality. Jack may not have been the perfect parent figure, but he's the only one he has right now. Accept that. I do think that Kyle he's definitely hit a wall of Y&R taking him to be pretty villainous. They've got to know that the fans are not gonna like a character who comes in and betrays a very popular longtime character. So I think Y&R is gonna have to reel him back in, and maybe the conversation that he had with Jack about you know, respecting Dina, respecting Ashley and Abbey, and not lashing out at the family, maybe that was supposed to be the beginning of it. I wonder if Y&R is also showing, or maybe choosing, to let Kyle have been double-crossed by Victor as a way to bring Kyle back into the fold with the Abbotts and let him have his moment of redemption. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Marianne says she loves to hate Kyle. I don't think he will achieve the status of Victor, Adam, or a younger, mature Jack, but at least he's more interesting than Reed or Noah, and easily my favorite Kyle recast as an adult. If the actor wants to, he'll probably last over a year in the role. If the role does not last over a year, he'll at least go out with a bang and not a whimper like the last three. I hope he lasts longer than a year. I think I could watch this version of Kyle for a lot longer. And Jack doesn't have a son on this show. I think it's a good idea to help build up that following generation, so I'd like to keep him on for a little while longer. We'll just see. I mean, Y&R, this is what they do. I do think that I think they're good at developing characters when they want to be. There definitely have been some misses, some fails. Hopefully Mal is getting the picture that you can't just bring on a slew of characters. You really have to work on them. You have to give a reason for the audience to like them, and I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed that that's what he's doing. Ambreen says, I feel bad for Charlie. I was enjoying seeing the Abbotts interact with people besides the Newmans. I enjoyed Charlie's filmmaker storyline. I hope he continues and doesn't get blamed for all of this. I thought it was very nice and gracious of the Abbotts to invite the Winters to come to that movie premiere, and it totally worked. And this was Charlie's baby. He put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, he like re-edited the whole thing at the last minute just to make it perfect for them. So it was good to see the Winters there at that very special premiere. The other thing that I like, by the way, is the fact that Y&R is really utilizing Neil. I mean, we have Jack as the head of the Abbotts. We have Victor as the head of the Newmans. And I do think Y&R is doing a good job of showing us Neil as the head of the Winters. Those are the three main families that we have on the show right now. So I think it's good that we have a strong patriarch for all three of those. Laura says, I was hoping Victor was going to read Kyle the riot act for bringing Dina into their plot to destroy Jack. Victor said specifically, do not involve Dina. So much for seizing the opportunity to show that his sense of decency rises to the fore during critical moments. I was expecting Victor to have a different reaction to all of this too. Maybe he did. Gary reminded me as I was listening through voicemails on Friday that Kyle had the window of opportunity to edit that footage. There was a scene where Kyle and Billy were supposed to meet with a client, and Kyle ended up not showing up at the meeting, and it was right at the time where they had seen the preview of the movie and right before the actual premiere evening. So it's a good reminder, Gary, even though you know, you left the voice message as you were listening, and maybe you've changed your opinion now as to who did it, but it is a good reminder that Kyle was the one with the means. I don't know quite how Victor would have pulled it off. He didn't even learn about the movie premiere, I don't think, until later in the day, so it would have taken some quick work. maybe it was just a red herring, the fact that Kyle had that time gap. But it certainly is possible that that they're going to switch it around on us, and maybe Kyle was the one behind it all along. Maybe they were in it together. I don't know. Also, Gary had mentioned that that John's ghost is kind of missing from all of this. Where is Jerry Douglas? It almost seems like it would be a perfect opportunity for him to come back on and have conversations with the children, even have conversations with Dina. Maybe Mal doesn't like the whole ghost John idea, but it is a little bit puzzling that they've chosen not to go in that direction, especially now that it seems like a perfect fit. Consuela says, Peter Bergman gets me every time. His emotional scenes are outstanding, and I cry like a baby every time. Hearing him talk about John with tears in his eyes was amazing, as he realizes that blood isn't more important. Y&R is really painting John Abbott as, I mean, they've told so many stories about him this week. He is such a great guy. I mean, more and more the stories that they tell about him, it's like this guy was basically the greatest father ever. Jack was telling a story of when he learned that Dina had abandoned the family and the way that John pulled him aside and talked to him, and that he was, even in that moment, being a father. He was not just focused on his own pain, but he was always focused on the needs of his children. And yeah, I think that, as you say, Consuela, Peter Bergman did an amazing job of portraying those scenes to us, and I'm sure that it would be a very, very heavy burden for Jack to have a father who was so clearly amazing, to feel like you're not stepping up to that on any level, up to and including the way that you have treated your own son. Daisy says, I feel like they're tainting John's legacy by making it seem that Jack is not his biological son. It was painful when it happened to Ashley, and it's equally painful for it to happen to Jack. So even though I feel like they should move on from the decades-old feud between Jack and Victor, I hope it turns out that Victor had somehow altered the results as a way to punish Jack for what he did to Ashley. And that would mean the true results show that Jack is actually John's biological son. I am hoping that too, Daisy. I don't want this to be the case at the end of the day, and you make a good point that Victor could very easily have had those test results altered. We just can't trust DNA in Genoa City. It doesn't matter what the DNA results say. They can be rewritten, rewound, and retwisted any way that the writers choose anytime they choose. So I am keeping my fingers crossed that they undo this one. Ellen has a theory on how that could be possible. Ellen says, what if John knew, or no, actually no, Ellen is saying, what if John knew that Jack and Ashley were not his biological children? Suppose he legally adopted them after Dina abandoned the family and stipulated that his adopted children would always have the same rights of inheritance as any biological children born to him. This could all come out after Kyle and Victor attempt to torture Jack with the news that he's not John's son and can't be CEO of the company. That would be also kind of a way to work in Jerry Douglas, wouldn't it, Ellen? That maybe John already knew all of this. That's the thing. Dina's constantly going on about how she was traipsing around with all of these men, and is it feasible to think that John had absolutely no idea about it? I have to switch gears for just a second because it occurred to me that a moment where I was really feeling Jack's pain was the fact that they're going through the process of trying to make Dina feel great on Mother's Day and trying to make her feel great with this movie premiere, like she's the grandest, most amazing woman on the planet. All the while she's sleeping with half of the country club that John paid the dues for. That was a twist of the knife moment, if ever there was one. Yeah. But it is an interesting idea that maybe John would have known that they weren't his kids. I mean, he wasn't a dumb man. He was very busy a lot of the time, but he's so very much in tune to the family. It's hard to believe that he wouldn't know that Dina was sleeping with half the country club. Nobody bothered to tell him that his wife was doing this. Leslie says this would be a great time for the return of Mamie. She could play a major reveal in the reveal of what has happened with Dina and John's marriage. She would also have a major part as Lily's great aunt and Charlie and Maddie's great aunt, especially with Charlie being involved in the Abbott Dina story. Yes, Mamie was mentioned this week. Dina, I think, was the one who was talking about Mamie, but that would be a really good tie-in for right now, considering everything that's going on there with the Winters family. Yeah, that would be good. Is the actress still around? I need to do a little bit of investigating on that. I wonder if she would even be interested in coming back in the show. I always liked Mamie. I liked that she had a crush on John. She would have been a whole lot better for him at the end of the day than Dina was. Laura says, Devon flip-flopping is making me dizzy. First, he won't even consider a baby with Hillary. Then he sees her mentoring and decides he does. Then Hillary acts like Hillary and wants to back out. A few words from Neil, and now having a baby is the most important thing in his life. Back and forth, seesawing like a maniac. He's less stable than Hillary. Choose a side and stick to it, man. I like that. Diana also says, I think that Hillary and Justin could be a new thing. We don't know anything about Justin yet, but he and Hillary look like they could be a hot new couple. Yes, so Hillary had that little flirty moment with the male model at the office. I wonder if that guy is cast long term. I did look on my soaps, or my CBS Soaps in Depth website this week, and I didn't see any casting notice about him really being in there as a possibility. The thing about Hillary and Devon too is that Y&R really isn't giving us a proper triangle. I could definitely get down for having someone else in the mix. They kind of dangled the Hillary and Kyle thing in front of us at one point, but I think that it would be interesting to maybe let somebody else have eyes for Hillary or vice versa. Hillary and Devon, there's no triangle. The only thing standing in the way of Hillary and Devon is Hillary or Devon. And in that way too, it's a little bit predictable, and I can understand how some people could just not be into it. There's nowhere to, you're either pro Hillary and Devon or you're not. There's no alternative. I think Y&R could build someone else up there, and Kyle's already there. Who else could we pair with either one of them? Oh, yes, Allie. Abbey and Devon. That was a little bit of a juicy chemistry scene there, right? Abbey and Lily were interviewing models for Lily's company, and Abbey decided to step in and give a little demo on how you might create some hot energy with someone. She just grabbed Devon up by his tie and said, mwah, 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 mwah. Let me show you how this looks. It was, and Abbey and Devon did have a little bit of a fling in the past. That's a possibility right there. I also forgot to mention the moment between Lily and Hillary. It seemed as if we had just a touch of humanity going on between the girls, where Hillary was looking at Sam, and you know, she always has had a little bit of a connection with Sam, and she was prodding Lily a bit that maybe Lily might be happy to be an Aunt Lily. Maybe that's something that the two women can bond over. I really like it when Y&R takes our feuds and then brings them back a little bit. I like when there is an undertone of we're two people who don't get along, who would never be friends in real life. We don't really like each other, but we're forced into each other's orbit, so we kind of have to play nice. So I like that Y&R that Hillary and Lily have hit their peak rivalry on Y&R, and maybe now they're starting to bring it back to a happy medium. Y&R also did something similar with Sharon and Nikki. Usually Nikki and Sharon are very rivalrous, and then this week we had Sharon comforting Nikki as she was crying over everything that's gone down with JT, everything that she's experiencing through Victoria's pain, and there was a really nice human moment between those two. So there's another instance where I like to see people not getting along, but then when the chips are down, supportive. And I think that's why I felt a little bit disappointed in Victor's actions this week as well. I really felt like maybe he was seeing something in Jack that he could connect to, or at least not poke. And unfortunately, Victor always has to choose the revenge path. I mean, we saw Victor laying on the floor after JT pushed him down the stairs. Jack had that moment of, should I help Victor or not? And his first instinct was, no, I'm not going to call for help. But then he ultimately did help the man. And here we have just maybe a month later, Victor doing just the opposite, where this was an instance where he could have saved Jack this pain. And it looks like, just from all of the current indicators, that he did just the opposite. So I like my rivalries, but I also like for there to be a little bit of cooperation, I guess, in there as well. Well, we'll see. Justin let me know a very, very important milestone this week that I didn't realize. Justin let me know that it was 5 years ago this week that Gene Cooper passed on. Can you believe that it's been 5 years without Catherine Chancellor? I mean, I really can't. That is so shocking to me, because in some ways it almost feels like it's been forever since I've seen her, but in others it feels like she was here just yesterday. I do think that Y&R has done a fairly good job of incorporating her character into the show, even though the actress isn't with us anymore. All the more reason why I hate that they decided to bury a body underneath the Catherine Chancellor memorial plaque or the garden. It's icky. That hurts me a little bit. But Justin did mention Y&R has just changed so much even in the course of 5 years. And Justin asked the question, how do you think that the show might be different if Catherine were still alive and still on the show and still with us? And I thought that might be a fun question to toss out to the chatters on this anniversary of Catherine's passing. How do you think Y&R would be different if Catherine were still on the show? And what do you think Catherine would have thought of all of the events that are going on right now? Go to yrchat.com. I would love to hear your hypothesis on Catherine this week of all weeks. Okay, everybody, we are getting ready to have a little thunderstorm here, so I better get going before my power goes out, which always happens every time it storms. Power outages, part of the fun of living in the Midwest or anywhere, I imagine. But that is my ending this week, but it's still your beginning. Again, yrchat.com is a good place to go if you would like to leave me your comments for this past week or for the upcoming week. Keep it fun, keep it friendly. You know how I like it. I love reading your comments. I love reading your thoughts. And I'm going to come back next week. I'll give you mine. I'll read some more of yours, and we'll come back together. I can't wait to get those paternity test results. Hopefully it's Monday. I don't want to wait too long into the week to find out where Y&R is going with this. And it's gonna be good. I have a feeling. Okay, everybody. Again, happy Mother's Day. I hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.